I would like to announce that a quorum is present, the meeting is duly called, and a notice of the meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. The time is 6 p.m. The following board members are in attendance: Catherine Sells, Sheila Taylor, Michelle Alcateb, Dr. Stacy Barker, Dr. Buddy Bonner, Jenny Prosnick. Ms. Lasan cannot join us tonight. I've asked board member Dr. Barker to lead us in prayer.
Thank you, Madam President. I invite you to pray with me as you so choose. Almighty God, our eternal guide, send down upon all those who lead this great district the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose we may faithfully serve in our offices to promote the well-being of all our students, staff, and stakeholders. I ask in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Our mission statement is engaging and inspiring learners and leaders. Ms. Taylor.
New spot. Vision statement. All students are equipped with the knowledge and skills to thrive and adapt for their future.
Public comment is next on the agenda, and this evening we have no speakers, so we will be moving on to discussion items. First up, Mr. Rare, Finance Report, Part 1.
Thank you. Patrick Woods is here from Texas Central School Bus to provide a transportation update.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to go over the transportation update, a couple of the topics that we're going to cover. We're going to cover the buses, routes, ridership, on-time performance. Here comes the bus ridership, and customer service. The Lewisville ISD principal survey, our call center recruitment and retention that we're planning for this next year. Texas Central School Bus operates and maintains the LISD fleet of 285 buses. All vehicles are currently up to date on preventive maintenance, and there are no issues with any of the buses. We are currently hiring right now for one maintenance mechanic that we lost about 2 months ago. So we expect to have somebody on board there to cover that position by the beginning of the school year. We operate approximately 219 routes. That's what we ended this last year with. 146 regular routes and 73 special needs routes. We started the 23-24 school year with 199 routes and 193 drivers. And we currently have 219 routes and 225 drivers. The goal is to start the 24-25 school year with 225 routes. That'll be up from the 219 that we ended the year with. We ended the 23-24 school year with average daily ridership of 8,362 students. Our on-time performance is down slightly from last year's 86.3%. Our company's goal is 95%, and year-to-date we are averaging 84.17, with quarter three trending upward at 84.6%. The May's on-time performance we ended the school year with was 87%. The stuff that we're going to talk about when we talk about fourth quarter this year is only dealing with the month of May. That's the beginning of the quarter. So all of our numbers for quarter four is just based on the last month of school.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Donnie Brown. I'm one of the operations managers for Texas Central. I run the SPED department for the Lewisville Independent School District. And the number or the chart that you see before you is for the ridership. The blue representing the gen ed, and then the orange representing the SPED. And you'll see throughout the year that it starts out and it grows pretty big. And so Q1, 76.57 goes up to 82, back down to 74 for Q3 for gen ed, then 71.99 for Q4. For SPED, starts at 687, goes to 746, up to 806, and then back to 741. So it's steady for SPED, but we did see a drop in gen ed. All right, and looking at the next slide. The next slide just actually shows year over year from last year to this year. With the light blue representing the fiscal year 23-24, and then the dark blue for the 22-23, and then 23-24 for the dark blue. The light green, same for SPED, and then dark green for the current year. So as you can see, the numbers are somewhat consistent. We do see in Q3 for SPED there was a significant drop-off in Q3 and in Q4. But the numbers for SPED actually went up. 806 this year, and then 741.
Hi, my name is Aaron Robbins. I'm the operations manager for the Colony, or the East Zone. Our next few slides will be for on-time performance. The very first one you see is broken down by quarter. It is the average of the AM and PM on-time performance for every tier. As you can see in the blue, we perform pretty well for the elementary, our first tier. Our markers are mid-90s, and that's what we aim for. You're going to see that the performance drops off for high school and middle school into the mid-70s. The next slide will kind of explain what's happening with those tiers as well. We are working on a plan to get those up as well for this coming fall. It's directly related to our staffing levels for our drivers, and as we combine routes, it does delay the service on some level for the high school and middle schools. There we go. Thank you. So if you can look at this, this is a breakdown of the quarters based upon AM and PM, right? If you notice that we perform much better in the morning, even when combining routes, right? We can start that route whenever we need to in the morning. We can combine them, get to school on time. Elementary times, because we drop off at 7:15 in the morning, allows us a greater time span for the second and third tiers. In the afternoon, when class is dismissed, we're still on time for the elementary. It's our first tier. We're there by 3 o'clock. It's usually pretty simple. But the window for the second, from the first to the second tiers, goes from 15 minutes down to 30 minutes. And when you're short drivers and you combine routes, that bus that's covering those two routes takes longer to get everybody home. Typically, it's not a capacity issue on buses. It's going from 10 stops to 20 stops. That does delay the arrival to second and third tiers, with the third tier taking the biggest hit in the afternoons. Thank you. Okay, so this is a list of campuses that at some point during the school year, for at least one quarter, they drop below 75%. The majority of these schools, you'll notice, are high schools and middle schools that take the brunt of our shortage. There are a few elementary schools I want to point out, like B.B. Owens or Memorial. Due to our shortage, they were actually servicing more than one campus. So the B.B. Owens bus was also servicing Peters Colony to help with ESL. Then it would go to B.B. Owens, be there by 3:05, 3:07, grab those kids because they lived in the same neighborhood, and then grab them home. But the arrival at 3:05 is late at that point, right? So as we beef up our staffing levels, these numbers will increase. They will get better, and the performance should go up for us.
Okay, the Here Comes the Bus app, the parent app, it's a live application that allows you to view the real-time location of your child's bus and receive notifications via your smartphone or computer. We currently, at the end of the year, we had 11,461 active accounts created on the app. That's up 2,930 accounts from the 22-23 school year. Added services to allow push and email notifications directly to the users. And we're expecting improved reliability. We had some different concerns during the year with parents saying that the GPS wasn't accurate and they couldn't tell where the buses were. The one thing that we did as the school year closed is we upgraded to a standalone database with the Here Comes the Bus. So the app just monitors the GPS of our buses and not all of the buses that are on the Here Come the Bus app. So we should see better reliability with that app going forward. We received back the LISD principal survey that we put out, and the satisfaction rating was 81.82%. That's increased from last year of 71.79. So with this, the categories of this topic was how we respond when the schools call, how we fix the issues, and so it had gone up to 81.82. So we're pleased with that. As the school year starts, we open up a call center for all of the parents as they're looking to find out which buses and which routes their students will be on. And we've increased service and reduced hold times by adding the ability to leave a message. We have direct lines for the school administrators going directly to our dispatch so they don't have to go through the call centers when they're asking questions. And this year, something new that we're doing is we're going to be using in-house personnel to staff that call center, whereas in the past couple of years we've done it, we've outsourced from a temp agency, brought people in, trained them, taught them. This year, we're going to be using our staff and our employees to be able to cover that. A little bit about our recruitment and retention. We've added a driver sign-on bonus of $1,000 and a referral bonus of $500. The surrounding districts, we took we called all of the individual districts around us to try to get where we stand with wages and rates as we have a problem, and we've had a problem with hiring and getting people on. The current average starting wage for the district surrounding Lewisville is $23.04 an hour, and our current starting rate is $20 an hour. This could explain why we have a little bit of trouble getting people in and keeping them. We're working on a market wage adjustment right now for the employees, and our district manager, Jim Coons, he's working with our executive staff, and he's going to be reaching out to the proper individuals at the school district to try to set up a conversation about this. So we're looking forward to that. As for challenges that we faced with on-time performance, the solutions to improve the performance, like Aaron was talking about, our problem has been short staff, having to combine routes, and then the biggest hit we take is in the PM, the middle school and high school tiers. we have about a 45, 50-minute in-between tier pickup time in the AM, and we have a 30-minute drop-off time between tiers in the PM. So that with combining routes, call-outs that we have, that's what causes that on-time percentage to drop so dramatically as we get on to the end of the day. So we're working on that, the incentives we have for our employees, the raising the wages. That's what we're working on to improve this next year. We're looking at trying to hire about 25 to 30 drivers over the summer. And that's it for our update. If there's any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. On the slide about on-time performance for those campuses, that was any campus that dropped within 1 quarter, correct?
Correct.
How many, if any, had an overall average below 75%?
I would have to go back and get that for you, and I can do that for you.
Thank you.
So I could, yes, ma'am.
Ms. Taylor?
My question was related to that, so it may be the same. I wanted to know, I knew the 1 quarter, but I wanted to know any schools that had all quarters, if you will, below 75%.
If we do, it'll be the middle schools, the third tiers.
Okay.
And I know that. So I'll go back and check for that for you.
Thank you.
So I'll make sure.
And then I understand the challenges of that you mentioned, especially with middle school and high school scheduling. There's a very large variance between the goal of 95% and the 84%. And I see your plan to get there, but how realistic is that? Because I thought 84%, well, maybe not that bad. And then we turned the page and I saw the slide with the 70s. And as board members, we are constantly getting emails that are not nice from parents regarding performance. And then I saw a decrease in the ridership, and I wanted to know if you had any insight on what happened to those kids, because about 500 of a drop. And did you do, I guess, any reach out to figure that out? You know, is there any discussion or surveys with parents? I saw the principal survey. I guess I'm concerned about the performance, just thinking that, you know, there are kids that are not arriving to school on time or being picked up on time, that's really an issue for parents, really, and for us.
Sure, I can tell you that our on-time performance in the morning is much stronger, right? I'm not overly concerned about missing classroom time because they tend to arrive closer to be on time. Where you see us step off primarily is in the afternoon. It's on the ride home. That's where we tend to struggle the most. Is making the campuses by dismissal for the high school and for the middle schools. So that information you're looking for anybody below 75% for the year, I'll get that for you as well.
Okay, and then did you know what happened to the 500 kids that it looks like there's a difference in the kids that started out riding the bus till the end of the year? So about a 500.
Honestly, I don't.
Drop.
Not right now. No, ma'am, I sure don't.
Okay.
I sure don't.
All right. That's all the questions I have.
Ms. Alcatab?
I just had similar questions. In regards to the 75%, I'm curious as well, the other quarters, you know, how do they fall in? Is there a consistency? You mentioned middle school, but
Right.
Is there a consistency with those middle schools and from the quarters?
There is. So if you dig a little deeper in the data, right? So there's when you begin to affect the second tier, you're almost guaranteed to affect the third tier, right? It's a feeder system pattern for the campuses, right? So if you take Hebron, for example, Hebron has a very large attendance boundary. It has a very big footprint, right? Some of the on-time performance affecting Creek Valley and Killing Middle School, the feeder systems, is not so much that the buses are having to travel a great distance to get those students dropped off and then turn around and make it to the third tiers. Part of the way we solve that is that we have to create more routes on the second level, right? It's not so much a capacity issue with the buses, right? It's just that we have to go from A to B in a way that we still reach the third tier on time, right? So instead of one bus doing 20 stops, 2 buses might do 10 stops, right? We get them home, and theoretically, if you will, twice as fast, right? So now those buses can serve the middle school much more effectively. Ultimately, that's what we have to do, right, is to better serve the students, is to provide more buses, right, in a way that allows us to get them home more efficiently so we can turn around and hit that third tier on time.
Sure.
And does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I'm also concerned about the discrepancy of the performance goal as well. I mean, 95%, and we're falling really far below that. And I know you've talked about ways that you're going to work on that, and I appreciate you guys looking into it and trying to brainstorm and come up with ways to make sure that our kids are getting to school safely and on time. And you've worked on the app with that GPS, because that is an issue that I've heard from a lot of parents. You know, they're on the app, bus isn't showing up, they're not coming, I see the bus, or it's not even next to me. And so I appreciate you guys taking the time to address that. And I really would encourage, I know you said you did a principal survey, and I had also written down a parent survey. I'm curious, why did we have such a huge drop-off? Is it because the winter months are typically higher ridership? Or is it, I'm just curious where those kids went, you know, and so maybe consider a parent survey and maybe even a student survey.
Yeah, no, that makes
to
sense.
get feedback from them.
No,
how are they feeling?
Sure, no, that makes sense. Because they're also a stakeholder as well, right?
Absolutely.
Right? And so part of their feedback goes to us making adjustments that help us perform better, right? Ultimately, we want to make sure that we do the best job we can for the students, and that's a great way to kind of go the right direction.
Absolutely, and I appreciate all of your guys' time and, you know,
Yeah.
really putting forth the effort to make it work. Thank you so much.
The biggest impact that'll make is the amount of drivers that we hire over the summer. If we get the count up like we're expecting, we'll be able to fill the buses, which will dramatically increase the on-time percentage because we won't have to combine so many in the process. So that'll make a big difference.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Ms. Sells?
Well, I did have some concerns as my fellow board members, but I also wanted to just give them a heads up, and probably because I had bus riders for all 12 years, and we ebb and flowed based on a lot of, or our buses did, based on what was happening at the school early before. And so you see from 76 at the beginning, first quarter, to 82, a lot of that early morning stuff drops off, and then it picks back up in the spring. And so you're going to get a lot of variation. And so it's not maybe so much that we lost full ridership. You lost them particularly. Maybe a Monday, Wednesday, Friday was an early day, and so they're only riding Tuesday, Thursday, but other kids aren't doing the same. And so I'm not sure that you're ever going to get a consistent across the board year-end ridership, and that's just my perspective as somebody who's been with it. Having taken somebody to school that missed a bus, the kid that I didn't even know, but that was crying on the corner one day as I pulled back in my subdivision, it is important. Because on the morning when your kid is that kid that hasn't gotten on that bus, that's the only thing that matters in the world. Right then. And in her situation, the parents both worked in downtown Dallas, and neither one could get back. And she had an exam that morning, and it was just devastated. And so I live in a community where we're pretty much, if you live in the community, hopefully you know somebody that knows somebody. And so I talked to her long enough to make a connection with somebody that she knew and I knew, and had her call her parent. And so I took her back. But I just know that morning, that kid, that was the most important thing for their parent, was to get them to school. And so I know that there's going to be hiccups, but a hiccup is a life-changing moment for those students who didn't get on the bus, or missed the bus, or the bus missed them. In her situation, it was a new driver, and they just forgot to turn down the street. And so thank you for your efforts. Thank you for continuing to grow your drivership, and God bless your employees who are out on the street twirling signs and trying to get the attention there, because I smile every time I see them. you almost want to go join them because they don't just stand there and hold a sign. They are very enthusiastic. But I'm looking forward to next year with the app. That was a major complaint, and I understand the more users on that platform, the less accuracy there is, and so it's going to be interesting to see how that flows. I think for our parents, they just want communication,
Yes.
and they want communication that is real and updated and is on time. And because as a parent, if you know a bus is coming and you trust the reliability of what you're seeing, you know what, then it's okay. Because we have a district-wide with our campuses that if the bus is late, those kids aren't penalized. That's not on them. Yeah. And so when you know that as a parent and you know that what you're seeing on an app is true, then I think that we're going to come over some humps next year as far as emails that we receive. But just thank you for your continued efforts. And I know hiring is just hard. Hiring's hard for everybody. And I applaud your efforts and just would love to see that continuation. And, you know, we have auto mechanics. Maybe we can work out something there that we could get like a little intern over there. You know, maybe we could help supply that pipeline. So anyway, just a thought. So thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you for this information.
Thank you.
So I have a couple of questions. What was your fill rate last year for drivers? You've referenced it a couple times. I'm curious what it actually was.
219 drivers.
But
How many,
so, but I mean,
how many did we hire?
Yeah, I mean, what was, because you obviously had drivers doing double routes, et cetera. So what was your shortage last year?
We ran about, so it started out worse at the beginning of the year. As the year progressed, it got a little smaller, but when we started, we were short 12 routes when we started the year, and I think we ended with about 5 or 6 routes down. We hired 37 drivers. The problem is we lost as they go through the process. We lose some during the process, and then we lose them after they start. Some of them leave because they realize this isn't what they want to do, it's too much. But what we noticed is this last year, we lost, I think it was 63% of the people that we lost last year. When they did their exit interviews, they left because of wages.
And then, and I know you don't have this on you, but I would like the data for the on-time for special ed.
Okay.
That wasn't included in the presentation. I'd like to know what that was, and if there were any campuses that also fell in that below 75%. Dr. Bonner?
I certainly didn't mean to cut you off, Ms. Prosnick. Were you finished?
I was. I only had my 2.
Okay. My question is aberrant tonight. We have, how many kiddos? 8,200 or so, and then 800 special ed. I just wonder what it would look like if we didn't provide buses except anybody with special education, and refund that money back to parents who could then provide a tax break, and then also a market means to get their kids to school. Just throwing that out in the mix. Thank y'all.
Dr. Rapp?
Yes, just one comment, Board, I thought was pertinent as well. You know, as we look at school start times and have a committee next school year to look at the start times of school and the length of our instructional day, as you heard them share, the amount of time they have between tiers is also really critical to on-time performance, and obviously we have a role in helping come up with that. So that'll be a part of the conversation with that school start times committee, since we need to look at that anyway.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Rare, you're still up.
As part of the district's debt management plan, we use the surplus funds to be returned to the taxpayer through early redemption and escrow of outstanding debt. We worked with the district's financial advisor, Hilltop Securities, to look at any previously issued and outstanding bonds that could be called for this year. And so John Martin's here with us tonight to go over some of those possibilities that you'll see on page 16 of your board book.
Choose any seat.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Rapp, thanks for having us. This is looks very similar to what we did last year. Michael and I put together, along with your staff, a plan for using your surplus funds. So this is a way for you to give this back to the taxpayer, pardon me, and reduce your overall debt burden at the same time. So it's a great plan. I love that you guys do this. I love that we're able to do this every year because it's kind of fun to pick and choose and make the most of things. And this year we'll tie to it, and then we'll talk to it. Here's the second agenda item really with this, is there's some bonds that we're recommending that we're makes more sense just to refund them along with the new money authorization. Congratulations, by the way. That shouldn't, that's important. You all got a bond election passed in May again, which is huge. So congratulations on that. That is, it's hard to do these days. And so kudos to all of y'all there. So what we've looked at is a number of bonds that are callable here in August, and then some that have been hanging out there that are lower interest rates that we've left alone. So as long as we're doing this, we kind of thought we might, even though they're 3% bonds, we could go ahead and redeem them. If you want to hold them back, you can. But we've included that in there. So we're using roughly $66 million of surplus funds. And what that will do is that would take 2013 Ds, some 2013 Ds, some 2014 As, and 2015 bonds, along with, you had, if you'll recall, we did a taxable refunding in 2020A. Well, believe it or not, at taxable rates, those were like 2.5%, crazy low rates. Well, because they were taxable bonds, we don't have to play by the IRS rules in that with tax-exempt bonds. So we can have an escrow that's yielding higher than what we're paying on those bonds, which you can't do on a tax-exempt deal. So we're recommending that we buy Treasury securities, portfolio Treasury securities, and escrow to maturity the remaining 2020A bonds, and what that will cost about what we're estimating $14.5 million. That's based on market conditions last week, to escrow $17.5 million. So net $3 million of savings, boom, and it's kind of a no-brainer. So all told, the overall defeasance program, we are projecting about $9.4 million of net savings after your own cash. That's back to the taxpayer. Happy to answer any questions.
Just grateful you left the Babs alone.
Yeah, leaving the Babs alone.
Anybody? Yeah. Once again, I appreciate the work.
Yeah.
I want to give credit to boards who came before us, and I want to definitely give some credit to you in figuring out the best way to do all of this. And once again, I want to say this is the money that we get to manage. Nobody tells us how to manage it. We don't have to go and bend to TEA or anybody else. We manage it. And the way that we're managing it is that we're going to be able to save the taxpayers $9.5 million with just this one transaction. So thank you very much.
You bet. Our pleasure. talking about the refunding?
All right. So the next item is the issuance of unlimited tax bonds and appointing a pricing officer to approve the sale of the bonds. And so in order to facilitate moving forward with projects associated with the 2024 bond that voters approved on May 4th, a bond sale is necessary. Looking at the cash flow requirements for the projects, it makes the most sense to move forward with one bond sale of $101 million. $34.1 million of the bond sale will be amortized over 8 years. So I wanted to make sure to point that out because that is for the turf fields. And so since the useful life is roughly 8 years, we will be able to pay those off on a shorter time frame. The remainder of the bonds will be over the 20-year, which is normal for the district. In addition, a portion of the Series 2019 bonds are eligible for refunding this year with $18.3 million callable. And so we're looking at putting those two together into one transaction. And so included in the board packet is a schedule of the events, as well as a listing of the recommended underwriter pool for this transaction.
Are there any questions? The only thing I didn't see in here, and it might just be, of course, in our policy, and that is the parameters for the sale. I saw and if I've missed it, please just show me.
So in the board write-up, you'll see it in that. You see that in the recommended parameters, and what Scott did was pretty clever actually to combine them between. So there's obviously there's new money for the new money authorization, $101 million, and then for the refunding, there's two separate parameters. So in the order it's set out separately, but in the board memo, we combine them because essentially a lot of that is the same. We're not going to extend the debt not past the 20 years, as Scott mentioned. The present value savings for the refunding piece complies with your debt management policy at 2%. Maximum true interest cost, you set an artificial number there. It is what it is when we go to market. We put 5% there. The not to exceed amount is the full authorization. And that's it. Does that answer your question?
It was just the combining that threw me off.
Yeah, it's a little quirky.
Anything else?
We did apply for the permanent school fund guarantee, and we talked to those folks down at TEA this morning. Michael, what Christy tell us? How many applications did they have for this month? Close to 500. Yeah, like over 100 applications just came in from May. So there's going to be a huge amount of school funds selling. So we'll watch the calendar. We've picked dates here. I just want to comment outside of all this that you have the flexibility because of your stats, larger school district and your high grade rating, and you have over $100 million outstanding. You have the ability to do these parameter sales for new money bonds, which gives you a ton of flexibility. So you're delegating this to Dr. Rapp and Mr. Rare, Dr. to sign off on these parameters. And obviously, even if it's not close, we'll be in close contact to make sure that even if maybe we look at the market, see where things are. It's really been very, very volatile here the last few weeks. So we had another 7 or 8 basis point swing just today. So, and it was a good move. It wasn't a bad move. So, kind of crazy, but we'll keep a close eye on it. I don't really have any other further comments. Happy to answer any other questions.
As always, thank you.
You bet.
All right, Dr. Rapp, your turn.
Okay, well, I'd like to give a brief update about our first meeting of our Community Efficiency Committee. I appreciate Dr. Miller helping put this together, and just appreciate her and Mr. Kosh and Mr. Rare on helping facilitate this process as well. So just re-included in this PowerPoint that we got here to this committee through your budget reduction principles, which included putting this committee together to study enrollment and facility efficiency, and our goal is to bring recommendations to you all in the fall of 2024. We went over the charge to the committee and said that the recommendations could include the retirement of school buildings or adjusting boundaries within the feeder pattern as we look for facility efficiency and usage. The committee contains 41 stakeholders made up of parents, staff, and community members, and we have campus leaders who are present at the meetings as well. We worked to ensure that there was a variety of representation in the room. The first meeting agenda, the meeting was on May the 20th, and their teach pieces were around demographics and enrollment trends and school finance. The key talking points from those presentations about demographics from Rocky were about home sales and that we rank 16th out of 20th in closings, and we have 42 actively building subdivisions. Regarding enrollment, they really were able to see our 10-year forecast and that we're forecasted to enroll around 46,000 students by the 28-29 school year. And then, of course, we like to educate every group of people that we see on school finance and the state of our budget. The themes of their takeaways, so we give them an exit ticket at the end of the meeting, and I appreciate Dr. Miller looking through those responses, and here's what she saw were the trends, people realizing our declining enrollment trends, and we're no longer a 53,000 student district, the fact our kinder enrollment is less than the seniors we're graduating, the limited opportunities that we really have as a district to generate revenue, and that the basic allotment is one of the key drivers of that. This takeaway isn't going to surprise any of us. The financial system and school funding is complicated. That's probably very well said. Yes, the length of time it takes to finalize state funding. Mr. Rare went over the graph that just shows it can be several years later before a school district really completely can close out their books on a fiscal year to know how much funding did they end up with, and that's why you maintain that healthy fund balance to navigate the ebb and flow of that time. We'll be working on meeting recaps. I appreciate Dr. Miller's help with that, and we will share those in the newsletters that I have that go out to the community to keep people updated. We'll also post those recaps on our website. In June, our teach piece is going to focus on our facility capacities with Mr. Kosh and our staffing capacities with Kathy Bray. And we'll continue to keep you all posted.
All right, thank you. Next up is the Human Resources Report. Ms. Cobb, choose a chair, any chair.
Good evening, Madam President, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Rapp. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about our substitute staffing update. We were here in December, and it's time to look at renewing again. So, well, I guess it would help if I turned it on. Okay, thank you. So just a little bit of history about our partnership with ESS South Central. We partnered with them in December of 21. At that time, the substitute service was within the HR department. Our fill rate was 57.1% with a total of 332 subs. The daily rate of pay at that time for a professional role was $115, and then by partnering with ESS, their charge rate or their profit margin was $147.72, making a delta of $32. So with that, just looking at our last 5 years of data, you can see that when we had it, thank you so much. When we had it, we were coming in below budget. The last 4 years, you can see that we're coming in above budget. For this year, the projected variance is going to be around $300,000. I will say, in my opinion, some of that is attributed to the staffing, just the numbers of subs that we have, as well as COVID, and then, of course, the profit margin that we are paying with ESS. Again, during that time, our agreement term was a year from December of 21 to December of 22. At that time, our anticipated expenditures were $6.1 million, and within that, the cost for the services that ESS covers, of course, is recruitment, screening, hiring process. They take care of the background checks, training, all of the payroll expenses, workman's comp, benefits, and insurance. Our contract negotiations did include a $5,000 credit at that time to be applied monthly if they did not meet our goal of an 85% fill rate. We came back to you in December of 22. We did vote to continue our partnership. We renegotiated that contract thanks to Mr. Martin and his team in procurement and contracts. We increased the fill rate penalty from $5,000 to $10,000 a month if they failed to meet our 85% fill rate. We also negotiated a reimbursement credit anytime the LASD and ESS office was not fully staffed with 3 full-time employees. At that time, it was not fully staffed for 6 out of 12 months, and we got a reimbursement credit of that $4,600. We also continued to have a 30-day out clause, which brings us to where we are currently. So in May of 24, we do have 826 active subs through ESS. Our fill rate is about 81% on average from April of 23 to April of 24, and we do have that $10,000 monthly credit for not meeting that fill rate. As of April of 24, we have received credits totaling $100,000. The LASD central office has been fully staffed for the entire 23-24 school year, and then of course the employee benefits include things that we can't offer are the weekly pay. They do have benefits that are a little less expensive than TRS. We have the Friday incentive pay of an additional $10. Then the 9-week incentive pay of $250, then of course they have weekly prizes, drawings, and weekly recognitions. A little bit of comparison data for the year from the spring of 23 to spring of 24. You can see that our overall teacher fill rate is a little bit higher than our paraprofessional. In January of 23 to 24, pretty much stayed the same at about a 76% fill rate. February, we increased a little bit within the year to the 80s, and then March increased more, and then April, we're ending around 83%. Comparing to 2 districts that are sitting next to us that are also use ESS, you can see that we are still well below where they are for the whole year of April 23rd to April of 24. Denton and Frisco are sitting at 90%, and we're at 81%. I would attribute that, one of the things that I would attribute that to is our number of overall active subs for a district our size. Just our substitute daily rate of pay, you can see that for our professional rate, it's $115. We haven't changed that number in a while, but it's pretty much in line with our surrounding districts, and there's a couple of outliers there, but pretty much we stay in line. Our history, like I said, we have not changed that rate since 21, but we still remain pretty competitive in that area. So the recommendations that we are bringing forth tonight to you all to consider would be that we continue with the current contract for the agreement term of July 1 of 24 to June 30th of 25. Our max fill rate for next year's school year will be 65%. With that, we are hoping to anticipate a budgetary savings of $5.4 million, with the $5.4 million approximately. That's our hope. We have allowed for the district to hire ESS substitute staff without any penalty after a negotiated period. We have negotiated our fill rate penalty from $10,000 to $12,000 a month if the fill rate score is less than 60% for campus-based teacher positions. We have negotiated a reduction in ES charged rates for the 23-24 contract year. They charge 1.28. We have negotiated that down to 1.24. And then, of course, that reimbursement credit of $4,600 in place for every month in case they go down in their staffing in their office. And then we are including the 30-day termination notice for all employees, or for convenience, excuse me.
So when you hear the fiscal year 25 update for Mr. Rare here coming up, remember that deficit that we're forecasting projects the budgetary savings from this fill rate with the substitute service.
And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Dr. Barker?
Thank you, Madam President. Just a quick question. That projected 23-24 variance of a little over 300,000, is that before the credits?
That is before the credits.
Okay, so
Yes.
if we're looking at 100,000, then that'll drop to
Correct.
a variance of a little over 200,000?
I got an email this weekend that they found some credits that they owed us. So we'll be having some more.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Taylor?
First of all, thank you for such a complete report. Every time you were speaking, I would take a note, and then the answer would be right after I wrote down my question. My question, though, is related to how we look compared to, I think it was Frisco and Denton. You addressed that, but I couldn't understand what you were saying.
So one of the reasons I believe in the research we've conducted that we are at a lower fill rate is because of our number of active subs. Typically, we should be, in a district this size, should have about 1,000 active subs. We're currently working off 800. So there's not enough people to fill the number of need.
Any questions? Ms. Sells?
I mean, that begs to differ then. How do we increase that number?
So-
How do we work? I
Correct.
mean, is there anything we, as a district, can do, not relying completely on them?
And yeah, that's a great question. Some of the things, we're looking at some internal processes to make sure there's not a lag in processing for them, because they go through our background check and things like that. So making sure that we're not part of the problem, and then also increasing, I'm in constant communication with them about their recruitment strategies and what they're doing.
Did you have any questions, Dr. Bonner? My only question is, do we have campuses that did have a fill rate lower than 65%?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Okay.
And so we're working on strategies to address that for the upcoming year. I've got some things in place with permanent subs and making some floaters, some ideas out there.
Okay.
All right.
With that, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up, accountability and evaluation report. Dr. Fitzhugh.
I'm actually going to call Dr. Deaton and Ms. Beecher up to come and talk to us about Knight High School and the optional flexible school day program.
Board members, Dr. Rapp. This is our annual visit about the OFS DP program, and I will hand it off to Associate Principal Suzanne Beecher.
All right. Knight High School, our mission is to provide flexible school hours in the evening with additional support and interventions for students in 9th through 12th grade at the Lewisville Learning Center. Our goal is to increase successful course completion, high school graduation rates, and transition our students to post-secondary education and or the career of their choice. So the students that we have in our program are in 9th through 12th grade, and they meet the TEA criteria for at-risk and dropouts that are eligible to participate. We have a prorated WADA funding based on minutes in attendance for at-risk students with a minimum of 45 continuous minutes every week. We offer both core and elective courses. Students are required to take and pass all state exams in order to graduate. We utilize a case management approach, including outreach, social service, and community referrals to increase student academic success and graduation from high school. The program was originally implemented in 2009. Back it up. So this chart shows us the half credits earned by content area. It signifies how many students were enrolled by content each 4.5-week terms to earn their half credit. When you look at this chart, please note that the Knight High School teachers taught a third period class, which is not reflected in these numbers since they are also part of the LLC Accelerated Day program. So our program runs with 3 class periods, Monday through Friday, from 2:05 in the afternoon to 7:20 in the evening. Our faculty and staff include 4 core teachers, 1 counselor who is shared with the LLC Accelerated Middle School program during the day, 1 administrative assistant, 1 part-time nurse, 1 administrator who is also shared with the day program for the LLC. We had 2 part-time ESL teachers, 2 part-time SPED teachers, and 11 adjunct teachers to help us out this year. Each term we have an average of 54 students in each of the 8 terms. This year we successfully recovered 32 dropouts. We had 105 dual enrolled students, and those are students that are enrolled at their home campus and come to us in the evening to gain extra credit. We had 102 night high school only students. We had 14 online classes offered, and an average of 20 free dinners were served every night that we were in session. This year we had a total of 35 graduates. Next fall we will have 22 students returning to their program. All of our night high school students, we successfully completed 82% of their coursework. And so one of the recommendations was to continue to submit the OSFDP application and offer the night high school program through LLC. So this chart shows you the data over the past 5 years. We have graduated 192 LISD students. Our graduation rate is 92%. And we have an average of about 54 students every 8 terms that we offer. For the 2023-2024 school year, we had 102 full-time night school students, 105 part-time students enrolled, full-time at their home campus, and part-time with us. We had remediation or advancement, average of 54 students each of the 8 terms. Our outreach included 596 phone calls made by our teachers, as well as sending 583 postcards, emails, and flyers to the students that presented on the 98 list for the district. We also had posters distributed among the campuses, and due to our efforts, we had 32 new high school students enrolled. This year, we had a 90% graduation rate, and we had 35 graduates graduate in May. And these are some of the things that our graduates had to say. Night high school made it possible for me to work and have the time in my schedule to get through some of my major roadblocks in life. It also helped me feel more comfortable in an educational setting, as it is more personal and hands-on with fewer people. Without night high school and the Lewisville Learning Center day program, I am not sure I would have graduated high school. It has been refreshing to know I have a second chance at education and that my teachers actually wanted to see me thrive and complete night high school while leaving with actual knowledge. I'm proud to be a part of this program. It's encouraged me a lot and has let me know it's never too late. Night high school has made me appreciate my academic teachers. It's taught me how to love learning new stuff every day and shaped me to be a better and more mature person. Every teacher and staff member has been more than wonderful to me. I appreciate them for seeing potential and pushing me to strive in life. Thank you, Night High School. You will be a part of me forever. And the last one is Night High School. Gave me another opportunity that some people don't get, and I appreciate everyone on the staff. They have been with me through ups and downs and kept me motivated. They were very supportive and caring folks. I couldn't have done it without them. And here are some pictures from our most recent graduation.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Taylor.
I'm sorry. What a great program. I wanted to know, and it seemed like it was covered, is this fully funded through, just like regular school would be funded?
It's funded for OSFD. We're funded by the number of minutes a child is in class every week. So instead of having an attendance time during the day where it's a funding period and the child is in class at 10:30 a.m., we actually track the number of minutes a child is in class every week. So they get, if they come to class on time and they're there the whole class, they get credit for 90 minutes for that class period, and that is what is reported to the state. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just trying to make sure that it was fully funded.
Yes, it is.
Outside of our operational budget. Thank you.
Dr. Barker?
Thank you, Madam President. It was very powerful for me to get to go to the Knight High School graduation this year. So I want to thank you and your staff for inviting us and for putting that on. And if anyone has any question about the power of public schools, they need to go sit in on that graduation and listen to the students tell their stories about how they crossed the stage. And that's just the anecdotal data. Then you look at your graduation rate of 90%. There are traditional districts that cannot get 90% graduation rates. So the Knight High School program and what you are doing for these kids just proves how important and powerful and meaningful public education is, and that we can provide the opportunities for these students that they wouldn't get elsewhere. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you, Dr. Barker. Thank you all for coming to graduation.
Ms. Sells?
Well, this was the first year I think I missed graduation, and I hated it because it means so much to me. My dad was a dropped out of high school, and he didn't have a community like the LISD community. So he went through life without having a high school diploma. And I think for those kids, because when I go to the graduation, I see a little bit of my dad in some of those kids. Not having the support system, needing to work, second oldest of 12. Somebody needed to put food on the table. Somebody needed to provide transportation. Somebody needed to watch the kids, the little ones. So all of that combined. But I just wanted to piggyback on what Ms. Taylor was asking. When we look at the district's expense for this program, are we breaking even on that program? And you don't have to answer right now, but would like to know that. But even if we're not, this is not a program that's up for discussion. This is a program that, no matter what the state does or our funding for it, in terms of where we stand financially as a district, this is about the kids. This is about our community. Every one of those kids that you've graduated are a better member of this community because of what y'all have done.
Thank you.
They provide more for their community, and they are a greater asset to our community. So thank you guys so much for what you do. I don't think any of us up here ever walk away from graduation without tears in our eyes. So thank you.
We did miss you, but thank you. Because you're always there, so we felt your presence for sure.
Thank you.
Ms. Alcatab?
I mean, I just want to share what my colleagues have said. I mean, LASD provides the best education to every single student within our boundaries. And this type of program just enhances that. Every student does not follow the traditional path. And for you guys to take the time, and your staff, and for us as a district to acknowledge that and allow these students that opportunity to be able to thrive and succeed. You know, I think one of the students said at the graduation, I can finally say I did it, just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And that right there, I just got goosebumps again, because that was impactful for him. He's heard, you know, his students, his fellow students, you know, say it for years at the school, and now he can finally say it because we provided that opportunity for him. And that's what we're about. That's what public education is about. That's what LASD is about, is making sure that every student is equipped and can thrive. So thank you for everything that you do with that.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate the work that you do. I say it's not graduation season until it kicks off with Knight High School.
That's right.
I think sometimes it's the most impactful ceremony that we attend because each one of those students has truly been intentional in getting and finishing their education, perhaps after having left or having a child or whatever circumstances brought them to not finish in a traditional manner. The impact on those 32 kids that we saw graduate in May it's felt. So I appreciate the work. Thank you all. I appreciate more the 596 phone calls and the 583 postcards sent
Yes.
by teachers, because it doesn't say that this is a passive program, that we are intentional in reaching out to making sure that we give kids the opportunity to finish. So
Yes, ma'am.
thank you.
Thank you.
You're dismissed. Next up, the 2024 bond program, INS funds. Dr. Rapp.
All right. Well, while Randy's making his way to the microphone, one of the things we've said, and we'll continue to say, I know, is just thank you to our community, because we get to talk about the 2024 bond program tonight along with the 2023 bond program. So we're going to start out with just some construction-related items with 2024, and then we'll go from there to turn it over back to y'all in the 2023, and Brian will need to join up here as well.
And before Randy begins, we're just going to take a look at the a bond sale timeline that we discussed earlier tonight when John Martin was here. So the proposed timeline for starting construction for the different projects would range from 2025 to 2030, depending on the project. It's estimated that $82 million of the $101 million total will be for first-year projects that are scheduled to begin construction in 2025. Construction is scheduled to begin for most of the projects in the first 3 years. And so due to the majority of the funds being needed in the first initial years of the bond, it's recommended that the $101 million be sold in one sale, as we discussed earlier. Per the proposed schedule of events that was shared earlier this evening, the pricing of the bonds right now would occur on June 27th, but that could change depending on the market.
All right. Good evening, President Prosnick, Dr. Rapp, and the board. So to echo Dr. Rapp, we just want to thank the voters. Now it's time to go to work. Sorry to too fast. Okay, so it's time to go to work. We have our first set of projects that we would like to get rolling in 2025. That means construction beginning in 2025. So with that, design work needs to begin as soon as possible. Just a reminder, we have 4 architects that we work with in the district here. We did check with the architects that we have presented to y'all. They have all said that they can handle the workload, the additional workload. Huckabee was the only architect that said they really can't take any more at this time. Many of these selections were made by adding additional scope to a campus that the architect is already working on. I'll go into that a little bit more on the next slide. And then selections were also made utilizing factors like previous experience with the type of work or specific campus, those types of things. So the projects that we're looking at starting, we have the new high school football stadium lighting and football scoreboard replacements. We're proposing Glenn Partners to do both of those. We have the east side and west side aquatic centers. Those will be packaged kind of together because really, if you remember that proposition, those funds can only be spent between those two projects. So we are recommending VOK on VOK for that project. They have the relevant project experience with that, also team members that are very knowledgeable of both of these sites here. And then finally, Flower Mound High School Stadium, Hebron High School Stadium, and then the Hebron High School Fieldhouse and the Hebron High School Baseball Softball. Stantec is already doing the design for both of those 20 years, so it just makes sense for them to kind of roll that in, that design effort there. So taking a look at the total current and proposed design load. So this does not take into account any of the work that they designed that's underway now this summer. This is actual current design workload. You can see we're still trying to keep it balanced there. You can see the biggest slice there, Huckabee, is why they said they really can't take on any more work at this time. And then we also have some projects that we're hoping to get started next year as well that we really feel like a civil engineer would be the best option rather than using an architect or an engineer, or rather than using an architect, sorry. Those projects are like the tennis court resurfacing. We have the baseball, softball field lighting. We have all the turf projects at the baseball, softball fields, middle school game fields, and the practice fields at each high school. And then finally, the track replacements. And then to talk a little bit about construction staffing, we brought a staffing plan to the board for the 2023 bond. Really this time, a lot of these slides are very similar, so most of the information in this slide is what you saw last time. This really talks about how we have the ownership and control of the construction standards by doing it in-house. We can do it a lot cheaper in-house than outsourcing. And really, this time we're only seeking one additional construction manager for these types of projects. This construction manager is going to require experience relevant to these types of projects. So the outdoor grounds and athletics type facilities, the turfs, all these baseball, softball field items, that's really what we're looking for here that is different from the 2023 bond. Project management and general oversight will be handled by our existing staff that we already have, that we were able to hire, thank you, board, with the 2023 bond. And then, as usual, staff will be hired on an as-needed according to workload basis. We really need this construction manager on as soon as possible to help us as we kick off these projects. And then the next slide is one that you've seen before. This was just history from the 2017 bond that shows that, folks do come on and they do come and go. There's an ebb and flow there, right? So as with all bond work and all bond staffing, it's kind of an attrition-related item there. So next steps, these are going to look very similar, but at the June consent items, you'll see the approval of the 2024 bond first sale projects and architect selections, and also the construction department staffing plan for the 2024 bond. And then potential August discussion items. I mentioned that civil engineering. We're really trying to get that on the street quickly so that we can hopefully bring that to the August board so we can get a civil engineer on board, maybe more than one. We'll see. And then hopefully we can also get construction manager at risk selections for these 2024 bond projects. Several of those not only require a different type of civil engineering versus architecture, but several of those projects we really feel like would lend themselves to a different delivery method. So we'll be bringing that in August as well. And this is basically the same items that would come as potential consent items in August. And again, I say potential because it is quite an undertaking to get that RFQ done and all those interviews done before August, but we're going to try our best to get that done. So with that, I'll answer any questions on the 2024 bond.
Dr. Bonner.
Not a question as much as my appreciation for getting these projects rolling, right? So those three bonds passed generally 55-45. So, that's pretty close to equal. And so I'm just appreciative that the urgency is being shown to illustrate to the community that our advertisements were accurate, that these things were critically necessary for learning programs for kids. And if this bond had not passed, as evidenced by the immediacy of the money being spent, we would be looking at facilities shutting down. So I appreciate the commitment to getting that rolling quickly. So thank you very much.
Sure.
Dr. Barker. Oh, yes, very good. I do have one small question, which is there a cost savings in using a civil engineer as opposed to an architect?
Potentially. Civil engineering is actually an additional ad service on most of our architecture contracts. You would be paying for only the civil engineering portion. So we can't really speak much about pricing until we actually get the RFQ done, and then Craig's team goes to work on the agreement. But yes.
I have complete confidence in Mr. Martin. All right. Well, stay where you are.
All right.
Because up next, we have the 2023 bond program. Mr. Rear.
I'll pass it over to Randy.
Yeah. Can you load that? There we go. Okay, so as you mentioned, this is the 2023 bond update. We're going to separate these moving forward, so a lot of times you will see a 2024, a 2023, and sometimes a 2017 as we have updates on those. So a little bit about a process here. I've got a couple of items tonight. One is the all high school track and field event lighting GMP. So this project provides lighting to all the track and field events. The reason it's required is because when we turfed all those high school football fields in the 2017 bond, we relocated a lot of those track and field events from the D ring, which is in the back of the end zone, out to other areas which are not lit. On this project, Huckabee is the architect and Hill & Wilkinson is our CMAR. This project was advertised and bid to subcontractors by Hill & Wilkinson, and they have scoped those bids and provided us with a GMP of $2,226,378, which is within the overall project budget. Our goal is to begin work on this project this summer and go into the fall. Our ultimate goal is to have everything completed in time for the 24-25 track season. And then a recommendation for this item will be presented next Monday night as a consent item for approval. My next kind of bid to speak about is the CSP for the emergency responder radio system. So we've talked many, many times at the board here about this project. We're very excited to finally have some bids in place here. This project includes the installation of the required emergency responder radio antenna system to improve first responder radio coverage within all of our district facilities. Testing was performed in all of our facilities, and it showed that 45 of our facilities needed some form of system installed. We sent out over 1,000 notifications that this bid was going to be taking place, and we received 8 responses. A little bit about funding. So actually, the Safety and Security Department was able to receive a grant fund for a little over $2 million, the 2022 through 2025 School Safety Formula Grant. This grant can be used for this project, and our intent is to use that funding first before any additional funding would be used. We do have money included in the 2023 bond for this project as well, but some late-breaking news today is actually Mr. Garrett's working on another grant that could potentially fund the rest of this project, which is great. Yeah, so can't make any promises, but if we are awarded that grant, I really feel confident that we can get it done within the 2. Part of the evaluation criteria involved when looking at the bids that came in on this were the number of days to complete. As I mentioned, that grant that we do have in hand has to be spent by April 30th of 2025. Most of the bids, if you looked at them with a single vendor, took over a year to complete the project. But by multi-awarding to more than one vendor, we feel like we can cut that duration in half. So we are bringing a recommendation to award to 2 vendors in order to try and make that deadline for that grant funding there. This recommendation presented provides the best value to the district based upon criteria to consider per Chapter 2269 of the Government Code. Pricing is within our overall project budget, and we will be asking the board to approve the use of additional contingency funds within the overall budget. So what that means is these projects are all directly related to the AHJ, which is the authority having jurisdiction of each municipality. Generally, the AHJ is the fire marshal. And so at the end of the project, when we say, hey, we've done the work and you should have great coverage now, they are going to come in and they're going to walk through and use their radio and look for any dead spots. If there are any dead spots or any other work required by the authority having jurisdiction, we want to be able to provide that immediately rather than having to come back to the board, right, for additional approvals. And so that's really what we're talking about when we speak of additional contingency funds. Those contingency funds would still fit within that overall project budget because we are under budget. Additional bid information, the bid tabs and whatnot will be provided to the board for review prior to next Monday, and a recommendation will be presented as a consent item next Monday night. Next steps on the construction side, those 2 items basically. So in June, you're going to see consent items for both of those bids that we just spoke about. And with that, I'd answer any questions on the construction side of 2023.
Any questions? Ms. Taylor.
First of all, thank you so much for this, for such a complete report. I'm in total agreement that you award to multiple vendors so that the grant period doesn't expire. I just wanted to say thank you again to the voters publicly because Mackenzie, my daughter, participated in track and field, and there was no lighting. People had their cell phone lights on, and the kids were doing long jump and triple jump. And some of the parents even said this is too dangerous to have kids jump where they can't see. So again, just want to thank the voters for that. It's going to be just critical for our students moving forward.
Dr. Barker.
Thank you, Madam President. Always appreciative of finding alternative funding sources. That's really helpful. Thank you to all the teams involved and Matt Garrett for continuing to look for additional funding sources. Just a quick question about diversifying vendors. Are they very niche in what they do, or is there the possibility that if one cannot complete the work, that having that other vendor could then possibly come in and complete any work that didn't get done?
I think we structured the bid to where we had packages, right? So one for each municipality.
Sure.
I think the answer to both your questions is yes. So they both are specialized in this type of work, this telecommunications realm, right? So the answer to your second question would be yes. one could come in. We didn't really structure it that way on the bid, but if need be, I think that they could do that. So.
All right, thank you. Up next, technology.
All right, thank you, Madam President. This first item is regarding our data center, and this is essentially the need for a fire suppression system in the data center. As you can imagine, there's critical equipment in there, and we need to be able to address a fire if that would ever be the case. Similar to some of the other construction projects, this is going to be a multi-step process. The first step in this process is selecting an engineer or architect. By the definition of the code, this would be considered a public works project, so we follow that process. We're going to have to pick an engineer. The second step would be selecting the construction delivery method, and then the third step would be selecting the purchase, hardware, installation services from the vendor that would be awarded. So similar to some of what you just heard with Randy, we're planning on bringing a consent item to the June board meeting for the engineering firm for this project. This next item is regarding our device replacement for our program-specific devices. At the top, the first bullet says we typically replace our devices around that 5-year mark. I do want to give Michelle Jacobson, all of our campus techs, our zone leaders, they did a great job going back through all of the departments and looking at what's out on campus currently or in our inventory system. Is it being used? And, does it need to be upgraded? So I feel like we're really trying to take a conservative approach there. So they've gone through and met with every campus looking at what's out there and what needs to be replaced. So primarily these would be devices essentially where iPads aren't used, right? So they're program-specific technologies in career and tech ed, AV, special ed. I know Raptor, some of that stuff was put in 2017, so that can kind of tell you the age of some of that equipment. And the same would hold true for library circulation. So we're really trying to get the most out of our investment, but ultimately we do need to replace some of that equipment. We're planning on, again, a consent item at the June board meeting. This next item is regarding 2023 bond technology department staffing. Excuse me. And in December, if you recall, I said we'd be bringing staffing requests forward as projects come forward. And an example of that I put in the sub-bullet is our ERP system. We hired somebody for that enterprise application support. We recently had the board approve a very large project to replace basically the majority of our iPads. So with that, there's a lot of different labor involved, and if we're replacing 34,000, we're collecting 34,000 and handling 34,000. So we have to supplement some of our staff. So ultimately what this is that it's really broken down into a couple different categories. One of them is what we would call contracted services. This would be essentially for some of the gear that we've already ordered. It's here in our warehouse. If you recall the E-rate program where we had to take delivery, this would be adding some supplemental staff throughout the summer to get that stuff prepped and ready and placed into the campuses. That second bullet would be essentially the second part of that order where it's going to get shipped to a third party. They're going to do a lot of that legwork in their facility and ship it to us. And then the third bullet under contracted services is once that equipment arrives, then we have to get it in the hands of the students over a several-week period. So essentially that number one, contracted services, is supplemental staff through the term of trying to get that technology deployed. The second item is what we're calling short-term hiring. If you recall, I said we would analyze cost on services such as professional learning, and then also, again, there's additional, work that's needed in our technology warehouse. So on the professional learning side, I know Ms. Gall and Dr. Green submitted or sent along in the board letter some analysis around what those hours and what that cost looks like and where we feel our best value is. So we're going to have a recommendation in that consent item around professional learning. And on the technology warehouse support, what we're trying to do there is just follow these ebbs and flows. So really we feel like the core of this work is going to be done over a 2-year period. So there'd be essentially a budget in there to allow us to hire temp employees that would range from like 17 to 20 hours a week during those peaks and flows to handle residual value and handling all this stuff. We also, just to point out, we have reduced our overall technology staff with our budget situation, so we do need some extra hands on deck to help process this amount of work. So ultimately, that technology staffing plan would be a consent item at next week's meeting as well. So our next steps, and a few of these things we've already talked about at the work session, but our campus sound and paging, the pricing has come back in that. There'll be a consent item in June. Also, our security camera storage replacement, that project is ready to bring forward as consent. I already mentioned the fire suppression device replacement and the technology department staffing. If we forecast out also into August, at that point we would anticipate the construction delivery method for the fire suppression system in our data center. And then we're also starting to look at cellular distributed antenna system, probably very similar to the approach Randy was using for the emergency responder system, where we have to analyze really the locations, the spectrum, and see how that fits with some of our other projects as well. But we potentially would bring that forward as a discussion item in August. As far as consent, in August, we'd be planning for the construction delivery method for fire suppression, and then possibly an engineering firm for the cellular distributed antenna system. So with that, if you have questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Any questions? All right. Got out of here clean.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Moving on. Mr. Rare, you're up again. Finance report, part 2.
Thank you. In previous board meetings, we've discussed the possibility of revising Board Policy C local to exclude TRS on behalf expenditures in addition to recapture when calculating the fund balance target. Payments made by the state to TRS on behalf of a school district must be recorded as equal revenue and expenditures, so it's not a true expenditure of the district when we're looking at spendable funds. And so the revised CE local policy to exclude TRS on behalf expenditures and the fund balance target would be brought back to the board at the June 10th meeting. And the proposed changes, it represents a component of our annual budget planning as we look at what our fund balance is. And so we'll continue to review that each year.
Any questions? All right, moving on. Fiscal year budget projection update. Did you find the tree?
Okay, yes. All right, so tonight we'll take a look at the fiscal year 24 budget and specifically the updated projections for revenue, expenditures, and fund balance. So when we look at our local revenue, these projections for both expenditures and revenues are updated through the end of May. For our actuals updated through May. And so, as a reminder, we talked about tax collections at a previous meeting, how legislative changes that took place after the budget was adopted has led to our projected tax collections to be much lower than what was budgeted. You'll see on the next slide there will be a little bit of an offset on additional state funding to make up a portion of that. The interest earnings is probably the second biggest difference for local revenue. Due to the high interest rates, we've actually received much better revenue than what was projected. So the budget included $7.4 million, and right now we're projecting to be a little over $15 million for interest income. And so overall, looking at total local revenue, we'd be down about $19.5 million from what was in the budget. On the state revenue side, as I mentioned, with lower property tax collections, we will receive a little bit of additional state funding, and so right now we're projecting about $11.1 million in foundation school program above what was included in the budget. And then on the federal revenue side, the biggest adjustment is in the school health-related services, and that's due to a change in the calculation on what could be included as far as billable services for our Medicaid-eligible students. So at this point, we're anticipating a pretty significant reduction in that revenue account. And so overall, for the operating revenue, the adopted budget was $558.3 million. We're currently projecting $546.2 million, so a difference of $12 million, which is about 2% of our adopted budget. On the expenditure side, thankfully, since our revenue is coming in less than what we projected, the expenditures are also coming in less than what was budgeted. And so you'll see pretty much every single category that we have, we're currently projecting to have some savings in our budget. So overall, we budgeted $573 million. We're currently projecting $556 million, so a savings of $17 million on the expenditure side, which is about 3% of our budget. And so to true up our expected revenue and expenditures for the year, we will be bringing a budget amendment at the next meeting for approval. And so what you'll see here is that's a decrease in local revenue of $20 million to account for the reduced property tax collections, increase in state revenue by $10 million, reduction in federal revenue by $3 million. So overall, there'll be a net decrease to our budget of $13 million on the on the revenue side. And then on the expenditure side, we're looking to decrease the budget by just about $8.3 million, and that's due to the reductions that have been made in department budgets for the remainder of the year. We were able to pull that amount back out of budgets, and so we're going to be able to reduce our expenditure budget by almost $8.3 million. And so that gives us our general operating deficit. The adopted budget included a deficit of $14.9 million. Currently for June, we're projecting a deficit of about $9.8 million. But then that's before we've had the district budget reductions, and so that's almost $8.3 million. And we're currently looking to reclassify some of our capital expenditures to using the proceeds from our land sale to offset that of about $1.5 million. And so that would leave us with a projected deficit of just under $20,000. So I do want to highlight that's still our June projection, so we'll continue to work on those numbers through the remaining months, but that's where we are right now. And then the next slide is taking a look at our fund balance projection if we were to end up with that small deficit. So our fund balance, our goal, and this is using the revised policy, subtracting out recapture, and then the TRS on behalf. And so our goal would be $128.6 million, and that would put our fund balance projected at this time at $132.5 million. So we would be above our target. So remaining steps for this year would be to close out fiscal year expenses, trying to minimize the amount of purchases that roll over from one year to the next. We would also be looking to finalize our revenue projections over the next few months as we get our final student counts for the year. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Ms. Taylor?
So when I saw the projected deficit, my first response was, wow. And I think we've talked about it almost ad nauseum. When you have a budget deficit, you only have two options: to increase revenue, which we know did not happen from our partners, and the other side is to cut expenses. And so it's not lost on me how hard you have worked, Dr. Rapp and your team, to reduce expenses $8.2 million. That is a lot. That's significant to get us almost to a break-even point. And so I just wanted to applaud your efforts for that. I know whatever was cut likely will be painful in other areas as we move forward, but just wanted to call that out and just, again, say kudos to your team.
Dr. Barker?
Thank you, Madam President. To piggyback off of what my colleague mentioned, I want to make sure that people hear that these are not fluff cuts. This is not just money that was laying around somewhere that we decided, oh, we don't need that. You just heard about the lack of technology staff that we now have, that we have to bring in some additional support to be able to manage the technology that we're bringing in that is necessary for our students to learn. There are positions that are not being filled through attrition that create gaps in support. That doesn't mean that we're not going to be supporting teachers and making sure that every student gets the best education possible. It's just we had to really tighten the belt. And as Ms. Taylor mentioned, we are very appreciative of that tightening of the belt because that is a miraculous number to get it to 19,000, not million, 19,000. Miraculous. But that meant some very difficult conversations and some shuffling of some staff and some adjustments of some roles and responsibilities. And so I want everyone, all of our stakeholders, to hear that. It's remarkable that we have had to make these cuts in a year when our state has a surplus of money and there's $6 billion sitting for public schools in Austin. I'll stop there.
Ms. Alcatab.
I just want to chime in as well and just let you know that I'm very, very, very appreciative of you and your staff and Dr. Rapp and everybody because, as Dr. Barker said, you guys did really, really have to tighten that belt in order to make this happen. And it is unfortunate that we were in that situation, but for you to come up and bring it down to a $19,000 deficit is miraculous and very, very appreciative. And, unfortunately, we're in the situation that we are, that we don't have additional revenue coming in. We don't. And so you guys have had to make those hard decisions and, due to attrition, possibly lose. And for you guys to do this is miraculous. Thank you.
Dr. Bonner.
Mr. Rare, let's see, last month we got within 0.5% of the overall budget. This month we've got it down to the price about of a Toyota Corolla. Gosh, what you going to do next month? That's all I want to see.
The one thing that I'm going to say is that the state promised to make us whole with the additional $100,000 tax credit, homestead exemption. And by my calculations, they're $14 million short. So I would say if we had that $14 million, I personally know how I would be voting to spend it. But the state shorted us $14 million. I appreciate the work to get it down, but I will tell you once again, the state has come up short, and they came up short $14 million for the promises that they made to districts across the state. To Dr. Barker's point, the money sits in Austin. It does not sit in classrooms where it is needed by the students across the state of Texas. And on that happy note, we'll move on to the June 10th board meeting consent agenda preview.
Okay, thank you. Another very busy month in procurement. There are a lot of purchases going on as we begin, work on the summer projects. I just wanted to kind of highlight a few of these, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. The first one is to consider approval of band uniform replacement for Hebron High School. This is approximately 400 band uniforms, and it's part of an 8-year uniform replacement cycle. So these were last replaced back in 2015-16. We have campus refrigerated milk coolers. It's 102 milk coolers as part of the Child Nutrition Spend Down Plan approved by TDA. And then we also have the renewal of the Rover program at the elementary schools. This renewal provides increased safety and security measures at the district's elementary schools that do not have a school resource officer. And then the student athletic UIL accident insurance policy, it provides coverage for students involved in UIL-sponsored events. In addition, all students on day field trips are also included in this policy. And that's highlighting quickly the many different purchases that we have this month.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much. Don't turn off that mic yet. Next up is the fiscal year 25 budget actions. Mr. Rare.
All right, so tonight we'll continue the discussion talking about estimated property values that we receive from our appraisal district, our tax compression that we're forecasting for next year, as well as a budget forecast for fiscal year 25. And so we're continuing to use the April property value estimate that we provided last month. The main reason for that is in May, that's when you have a lot of protests. And so the values, right now I believe, looking at our most recent estimate, there were upwards to 40 to 45%, maybe a little bit higher, that was under protest at this time. And so there's really not a lot of value that can be taken with the May estimates, and so that's why we go back to the April estimates before the protests started to take place. So you'll see our estimated value on there that we're projecting, as well as where the April values were, and then we're estimating a slight decrease from the April values to what we actually receive when we get the certified values in July. And then on the tax rate history, we've seen pretty sizable tax compression over the last few years as we've seen sizable property value growth throughout the state and also the district. Right now, we're not forecasting much tax compression for fiscal year 25, so you'll see it shows the M&O rate, it's pretty much remaining flat. So there's very, very small compression for next year. And then on the budget forecast side, just kind of a reminder, the revenue forecast assumptions that we're currently using. We're using enrollment projection of 48,100. That's a slight decrease from this year. So at snapshot date for this year, we're at 44,440. And then our estimated ADA, we're using 93% of our projected enrollment. And so just kind of looking at previous year's trends, we think that's going to give us a better estimate on where we think our ADA actually will end up. And so last year, we were at 45,207. That's how we ended up for fiscal year 24. At this time, those are the most recent estimates that we have. And so that would be a decrease of about 474 for our ADA for next year. Property values, we have our current projected certified estimate, and we'll continue to update that and then finalize that once we receive our July values. And then, as I mentioned, our tax rate, very small decrease for next year. As we're all aware, no change to the basic allotment, and then a very small increase in the Tier 2 golden penny yield. And then on the expenditure side, we're currently projecting, based on the values that we're using right now, recapture payment of $13.9 million, payroll continuing to use a fill rate of 98%. The salary budget projection will be finalized, or I guess the first initial projection will come in mid-June. So we'll have a better estimate on what our salaries look like mid-June. On the other anticipated increases that we have in there for utilities, insurance, contracts, we'll continue to firm those numbers up as we move through the summer and we work with those vendors. And then the initial budget forecast, as a reminder, so initially we were looking at a deficit of $14.1 million for next year. After we've been working on cost reductions for the last few months, and so now we're looking at budget deficit forecast right now of $8.4 million. And that could change, as I mentioned, as we continue to look at updated salary numbers. We'll continue to adjust that, and as well as what our certified property values will do to that. And so at this time, our next steps would be to update with our certified values in July to make sure that we complete all the information that we need for TEA on the property value study, but then also working with them to receive our maximum compressed tax rate that we can adopt in August. And then we'll continue meeting with the Community Efficiency Committee and then continue any advocacy efforts that we can for fiscal year 25.
All right. Any questions, comments? Dr. Parker.
Thank you, Madam President. When I was a classroom teacher, if all of my students failed a test, I usually looked at me at that point. Something I did or something with the test wasn't working if all of my students failed. And I say that because if you look around at districts across the state, we are by no means alone in adopting a deficit budget. Our colleagues are having to make some of the same decisions that we're having to make. And yet, there's a narrative out there about how districts manage their money. To me, that sounds a lot like blaming the students for all failing the test.
Are there any other comments or questions? I have a question for one of the assumptions of 99% collection. Having just seen that we were 14 million short for this year, I mean, how confident are you that those numbers are? And I know that these are projections, but that's where my concern lies.
Yeah, based on our trends over the last few years, I'm pretty confident that we'll still be at 99%.
Dr. Rapp.
You know, one of the things is I think about what we heard tonight with the presentation about Knight High School, and obviously, you know, several things have allowed us to get to an $8.5 million deficit down from the forecasted $14 million. We talked about budgetary savings from the substitute difference, right? We also talked about with our staff before they left the middle school schedule changes. And we know ultimately that we're looking at those low enrollment electives and that we're right sizing as our enrollment decreases. But you really, as your budget assumption goes down about your enrollment, your recapture goes up. And so that causes some of the gains that you make with budget changes when you consider all the hard work to pull back budgets and really not be able to do some things that we've been able to do. That drop in enrollment and that increase in recapture takes away a little bit of that progress that you've made. We absolutely have said over and over again that, you know, these are changes that we're being forced to make, some changes that instructionally and support-wise we do not want to have to make. And I said on a phone call with superintendents today, and absolutely, adopting deficit budgets, adding to their deficits, going into fund balance in order to provide compensation. And the next item I know you all have to talk about, and we talked about last month, was, you know, where we are on compensation, and benefits are going up. And if there's not a raise, and what does that do to people's paycheck as benefits are going up? And I just think it's important to underscore, I know we have continued work to do as we face that $8.5 million deficit. I appreciate so very much all of your support as we've navigated these challenges, because I know we have staff that are doing their best to handle them well and with professionalism and to rally. But I just continue to say to people, you know, and to our staff and our community that things have got to change in the legislature. And what we talked about as superintendents today is that there is sitting, and y'all have referenced the surplus, roughly $750 per student is what was allocated that was not distributed. That's sitting up there and that wasn't distributed to public schools. $750 per student, which would make a huge difference in all of our budgets. So thank you all for walking this path, and I appreciate all of the comments to the team that's rallied so hard to pull back their budgets.
All right. With that, the preview draft of compensation resolution for 2024-25. Mr. Rare.
So, as a result of what was been discussed tonight, that there was no legislative action to increase the basic allotment, no additional funding has been provided for districts to make staff or salary increases for staff without dipping into fund balance, as Dr. Rapp mentioned. And so included on page 173 of your board book is a one-time payment resolution that could provide a compensation increase for staff depending on the results of the district's financial audit for fiscal year 2024. And so captured in that resolution are some of the items that we've discussed at previous board meetings, to looking at either the possibility of a one-time pay or a midpoint salary increase, as well as a one-time pay. And so there's different options that are included in that resolution for the board to consider.
Are there any questions, comments? All right. We will move on to the Board of Trustees report. Board committee update. The only one that I know that has an update is our advocacy committee. Ms. Alcatev, do you want to just say what we've discussed?
With the,
well,
how much do you want me to go into?
Well, so we've met, and in following the adoption of our advocacy plan, we are looking at hosting a forum.
Yep, we're moving on with the timeline. Okay, got it. So we are moving on with the timeline that was adopted in our advocacy plan that the board discussed, and we have been putting that into motion by arranging a forum that we will be inviting all candidates who are running for office in November to attend. We are also inviting them to all tour our campuses, so we are going to be reaching out to them to schedule those with their offices and, really encourage them to come see firsthand what's going on in our schools and be a part of it. And so we're currently on the plans of that. We're working on getting that date finalized and so forth. But we're working on that timeline where we're going full force.
We will reorganize committee at board retreat. I'll be sending out your preference sheets for that. Also, moving on, there's a resolution, a draft of a resolution for the Board of Trustees that's in your folders. I got this kind of late today from council. And so if you have any additions, edits, if you could get those to us myself before Friday so that we can amend that so it can be part of our June 10th regular meeting, I would greatly appreciate that. So moving on, we have action items. Consider and take action to non-renew the Chapter 21 term contracts of Jamie Provo. Ms. Cobb?
Ms. Prosnick, can you hear me? Am I on? Ms. Prosnick, thank you tonight for this conversation tonight. We have 2 employee issues that have been discussed in closed session that require board action.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Alcatab?
I move that the board non-renew the Chapter 21 term contract of Jamie Provo and further authorize the superintendent to take steps in accordance with this action.
Second, Ms. Taylor. All those in favor? 6-0. Next is to consider and take action to non-renew the Chapter 21 term contract of Andrea Blumfield-Temshev. Excuse me. Would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Taylor?
Madam President, I move that the board non-renew the Chapter 21 term contract of Andrea Bloomfield-Timshiff and further authorize the superintendent to take steps in accordance with this action.
Second, Ms. Sells. All those in favor? Passes 6-0. If there is no further business, this meeting is adjourned. The time is 7:54 p.m. Have a pleasant evening.